Part 50. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 491. Chapter 491 The Secret of the Si Family. A traitor, the old lady almost jumped up. Who could it be? There is a traitor in the house, we need to investigate it carefully. As he spoke, he looked around, as if he wanted to find out who the thief was. Mom, don't get excited. I think this person is not looking for money, and he is not harming his life, so he must be looking for something. Chinjai thought for a while and said, what do you think it could be? Mrsi frowned. After thinking for a while, she seemed to have thought of something. You mean? Without saying anything, he stopped suddenly when he saw Chinjai's eyes. I'm not that thief either, how do I know what he's looking for? Then he lowered his face and looked at Yao. Yao, something big has happened to the Si family. You can't just sit back and do nothing. This is simply a slap in the face of the Si family. You must find this thief, and you can't let him go easy. Grandma, are you sure you haven't lost anything important? He saw the exchange of looks between the old lady and Chinjai just now, and knew that they had something unsaid. But it's normal. Apart from Grandpa, no one in this family really treats him as a family member. They always have their own little secrets and ulterior motives that they can tell anyone in the family, but they don't will tell him. Of course, he is not interested in their little secrets either. But this time, he heard Su Feng report that it was Yin and Yang who sneaked into the door, and he was worried. He originally wanted to rush over overnight, but he didn't expect that these two people sneaked in and out silently. In fact, if they wanted to take action, even if he took people back immediately, it would be too late. Obviously their goal was not to hurt people, so why? What are they looking for? Seeing that Grandma clearly knew about it but refused to say anything, he was a little curious as to what it was. Hearing his question, Mrs's eyes flashed. She looked away and said, how do I know? Our Si family seems to have a great business, but now it is just an empty shell. What else is there in this family? It's not like you don't know how much money you allocate to us every month. Why don't we have anything important? She was obviously talking about him, but Yao didn't expose her. She didn't want to say anything, so it would be in vain to continue asking. I've probably checked, and there are a lot of important things, so this thief must have another agenda. As for what he's plotting, I don't know yet. Yao, since you are now the head of the Si family, this matter should naturally be done. You go and deal with it, or else it gets spread. Chinjai smiled and didn't say any more. With a casual glance, he saw the clock hanging on the wall and suddenly reacted, oh no, if U11 wants to come today, it will be too late. After saying this, the old lady remembered and hurriedly responded, that's right, tell someone to clean it up quickly. What a mess this house is. Calm down, go to the kitchen to see if you have bought all the vegetables you should buy. I almost forgot, the old lady shouted. Si Kongrong lowered his head and said warmly, I've gone to see it and everything is ready. It was ready last night, so don't worry. Don't worry, the family is in such a mess. I don't know if it caused any trouble, offended someone, or was retaliated against. The old lady glanced at Yao, indicating something. Chinjai has already put on his coat, there's no time, I'll go pick someone up first. Mom, I'll be back soon. I know, slow down and don't drive too fast on the road, old Mrsi said with concern. She had always been extremely fond of her youngest son. Seeing that the marriage was about to take place, she absolutely couldn't make any mistakes. Thought for a while, then looked at Yao, who had just hung up the phone, and cleared his throat, there's nothing going on here. You've already seen it, so go back to the company first. After all, the other party is the eldest daughter of the Yu family. The marriage was originally unstable, and she really didn't want anything to go wrong. Especially to her, this grandson was simply the most unstable time bomb. Unexpectedly, Yao curled his lips and said, I have made arrangements with the company. I will stay here to accompany grandma today. I don't want your company, she almost blurted out. After MRSSI yelled out, she suddenly realized that this was inappropriate and said slowly, I mean, there are still many things waiting for you to do in the company, and the SI family is so big. Since your grandfather handed over our inheritance to you, you should do a good job. And if this thief is not caught for a day, how can you let us feel at ease? I will find out the thief. I won't take over the business for a day or two, so grandma doesn't have to worry. I rarely have time, and I heard that my brother-in-law is getting engaged today. I just happened to have a look at my future aunt. He had a faint smile, but this smile made people feel a little cold. If you look closely, you can see that the smile did not reach the bottom of his eyes. MRSSI wanted to say something else, but Yao had already stood up. I'll go upstairs and take a look. Seeing him go upstairs, Kongrong gently pulled his mother's arm and said, Mom, let him be. He has not been back to this old house for a long time. He knows that it is always more than just yin and yang who come to visit C's house, and there is more than one Yu family, but he doesn't know why they come for it. Before he passed away, my grandpa had told a few words about the company and the SI family, but when he later mentioned that the SI family had a secret that had been guarded from generation to generation, he died before he could finish the sentence. Naturally, grandma would not tell him. As for the rest of the SI family, they either didn't know, or even if they knew, they couldn't tell him. He could only investigate secretly by himself. Since it is a secret of the SI family, of course it cannot be carried out in a big way. I have quietly investigated it for a long time, but I have not been able to find out the truth. This time, is the night detective who is both yin and yang also doing this for the secret? Standing in the corridor, I looked around. I checked everything I could. If there was anything missing, it might be grandma's room. After all, he is an elder. He cannot directly say that he wants to search her room. It is always a bit inconvenient. Standing at the door, Yao pondered for a moment. Just as he was about to reach out and push the door open, he heard the sound of a car coming from downstairs, followed by the noise of someone talking. Is Yuziruo here? So fast? His fingers touched the door panel, and after thinking for a moment, he took it back and tested the door handle. Sure enough, it was locked. Downstairs, Chinjai was introducing loudly, 11 Ruo, this is my mother. Hello, Aunt Yuziruo nodded lightly, but not very enthusiastically, looking cold and indifferent. MRSSI knew that this eldest lady had a bad temper, so she was prepared in her heart, but she didn't mind. She said with a smile, Miss Yu really has an extraordinary temperament. She is different from the wealthy ladies I usually see. After all. Yes, everyone's style, everyone's style. As he spoke, he turned to look at Kongrong, seeking resonance. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 492. Chapter 492. What is your attitude? Yes, yes. Kongrong immediately responded with a smile. I heard before that Miss Yu's temperament is not comparable to that of ordinary ladies. When I see it today, I am convinced. Just this aura. With such a posture, it is no wonder that he can be in charge of such a large family. I really admire him. When I was young, if I could have half the temperament of Miss Yu, I would be satisfied. You just know how to play. How can you be as sensible as Miss Yu? MRSSI answered. Yuziruo was actually a little impatient when the two of them sang together. She was used to hearing flattery, and she was tired of hearing it. She didn't expect that even the SI family members were so flattering. I think that in this generation of the Si family, except for Si Yao, they have already declined. When she first came here, after she set her sights on the Si family, she originally wanted to capture Si Yao, but she gave up after conducting a comprehensive investigation. First, this man is too shrewd and difficult to deal with, and it is almost impossible to detect any weaknesses in him. It is not that he is afraid of difficulties, but she does not want a man to hinder her career. Facing a man who is as shrewd as herself, she wants to, it would be very difficult to start from him. But Si Chinjai is different. He is stupid and greedy enough. It would be too easy to start from him. Now that everyone knows each other, let's get to the point. She doesn't like to waste time on unimportant things. She was so direct that everyone in the Si family was surprised. They looked at each other and old MRSSI smiled and said, "Miss Yu is indeed a quick talker, but, is Miss Yu the only one today?" Yuziruo looked to his left and right, shrugged and said, "What if this marriage matter, won't Miss Yu's parents come out to talk about it?" MRSSI asked curiously. Although 11 Ruo is now in full control of the Yu family, her parents are still there, so it's okay not to show up for other matters. For such a big event as a marriage, why don't you even meet your in-laws? 11 Ruo said that she can decide her own life events, and her parents are very open-minded. Si Chinjai explained quickly. He had wondered about this before, and that's what Yuziruo said, but she added another sentence, "I don't have to be you, I choose you. You should understand that it is not you who I fancy, but you. It's the family behind you. We are all adults and we all know what maximizing interests is, so let's avoid those cliches." He was surprised, but he agreed with her words, although he felt a little unhappy. That's right, if it wasn't for the Yu family's power to help him, he wouldn't be so licking his face to please her and coax her, all for the purpose of maximizing interests, but these words came out of her mouth so coldly, saying it will still make people feel uncomfortable. It was as if he had no charm at all, just because his surname was Si and he was MRSC's favorite son. Other than that, there was no other personal reason for him. If this is the case, then why did she show that shy look in front of him, why did she let him kiss her, and why did she get her ears pierced for him? Thinking of this, I subconsciously glanced at her earlobe. Sure enough, I saw that the earring I chose was still hanging on it, and I felt a lot relieved. Women, it's true that they all say what they say and mean what they mean. She obviously cares about him, but she pretends to be cold, as if she doesn't care about him at all. But just think that she is trying to maintain her momentum as the head of the family outside, and he will cooperate. After getting married and having children in the future, he will naturally have to return to the family to support his husband and raise children. Then everything in the Yu family will be his. By then, he will have enough strength to compete, plus his mother and sister with his help. Getting back the Si family's property is not as easy as picking something out of a bag. With this thought, he didn't mind and helped Yuziruo speak. But MRSSI didn't think so, she was still a little unhappy. After all, he is an old man, and his ideas are still old-fashioned. Although it is indeed for the power of the Yu family and to support his son, since they have already talked about marriage, why should both parents sit down together and talk about what to do about the wedding, the bride price, and the dowry? Wait, this is a serious wedding, but Miss Yu seems to be indifferent to the marriage and doesn't take it seriously at all. However, her son helped her speak, and she knew that in this marriage, it was more important to ask for others than for others to ask for oneself, so she asked softly and gently, "What are Miss Yu's requirements for the wedding?" "Regarding the bride price, chunk. As for the wedding gifts and banquets, keep everything simple. As for the standards, I have asked the secretary to print them out. You can also take a look," she said, tilting her head and waving with her hand. Immediately afterwards, her assistant stepped forward and took out several document-like things from the briefcase, one for each person, and handed them to Mrssi and Si Chinjai respectively. Not to mention the old lady, even Si Kanangrong next to him was shocked. When have you ever seen something like this? Talking about marriage is just like talking about business, but there is still a contract and documents. And looking at her look, it seemed like she had left all the matters related to her marriage to her assistant, and she didn't care about it at all. Mrssi frowned and looked at the paper in her hand. The densely packed text gave her a headache just by looking at it, and the format was really hard for her to accept. Putting it aside casually, he rubbed his temples with one hand and said, "Miss Yu, I'm old and can't understand these things. If you have any questions, we might as well say it directly. Since you said you can make the decision, then since everyone is already sitting here, if you have any conditions or requirements, you can mention them, and we will try our best to meet them. I am older, and even if you call me aunt, I can still be your grandma. I really don't understand these things." She had tried her best to maintain a kind smile, and asked Yuziruo's opinion politely. However, Yuziruo still maintained her aloof look. "It doesn't matter. If aunt can't understand, I can ask my assistant to explain it to you. I don't have many requirements for the wedding, and the bride price is within a reasonable range, but I hope it can be done as soon as possible." "What are you doing?" Before she could finish speaking, Si Kongrong spoke angrily, "Miss Yu, my mother is also your elder. Is this your attitude towards your elders? Do you also have the same attitude towards your parents at home? Still yes, this is your own wedding, why are you making it look like someone else's, asking your assistant to handle everything? You might as well let her help you get married." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 493. Chapter 493 Temptation. Sister, Si Chinjai was afraid that she would do something bad, so he called out. However, facing Si Kongrong's ridicule, Yuziruo didn't look angry. She curled her lips, glanced at her assistant, and said jokingly and seriously, "If she is willing, I won't mind." Usi Wrong choked. Si Chinjai was afraid that something bad would happen to her, so he quickly smoothed things over. No, just kidding. Mom, it's actually like that. You also know that it's not easy for 11 Ruo to be in charge of such a big family and business by himself, so some things just leave it to the assistant, and I agreed after reading it. 11 Ruo doesn't have any requirements, she is actually very simple. Who says I don't have any request? Yuziruo glanced at him and straightened his back. I want to move to your house. Our family, Si Chinjai was stunned, and Mrssi was also surprised. Yes, but I want a separate room, she continued, and it's best if we can move in tonight. So fast, she almost blurted out, but Si Chinjai didn't understand what she meant. At first, he thought she wanted to take the initiative to embrace her, but she also wanted to live alone. Could it be that this was a woman's reserve? "What, are you having difficulty?" she said. "Don't get me wrong, I hope to get to know each other better before marriage, but if it's inconvenient for your family, forget it, I don't care." It's convenient, how can it be inconvenient? It was rare for her to offer to live in her house. It was too late for Si Chinjai to be happy, so how could he refuse? But it was so sudden that he didn't react for a while. Seeing that she seemed to be changing her mind again, he kept saying, "Don't tell me we have a room in our house. Even if we don't, I will let you live in it when I move out, that's it." Even though she knew her son was for a great career in the future, Mrssi couldn't bear to look at his fawning look and sighed quietly. "In that case, I'll move here tonight. I hope I won't disturb my aunt." She bowed slightly. apologetically. It's okay. We are all a family anyway. Since Miss Yu is not around, it's not too late for me to be happy. MRSSI raised a smile, then turned to the people around her and said, "Go and clean up the best guest room. Make good preparations for Miss Yu. If you need anything else, just go and get it." Then excuse me, Yuzuru smiled slightly. Perhaps she noticed something, raised her head and looked upstairs. Just now she felt that someone was watching her from the dark, but the other person had no murderous intentions, so she didn't pay much attention to it and continued chatting with the family. Even now, the feeling is still there. Then, she saw Si Yao. Standing at the entrance of the stairs upstairs, Si Yao stood there openly, looking at her blatantly, without any dodge or embarrassment of being caught. Yuzuru recognized him. After all, she had done research and she knew that this man was a difficult man. After meeting him, she realized that the information on the paper was far from enough to describe him. This man's aura is very powerful. She has met countless men and interacted with many men, but none of them are like him. Just looking at him from a distance, he has an aura that is not angry but powerful. She narrowed her eyes and suddenly became interested in him. Si Yao has naturally heard of Yuzuruo's name, and the Yu family is also an extremely mysterious existence. It has been keeping a low profile for so many years. Until Miss Yu took over, it became stronger day by day. In ancient times, the martial arts world has become one of the best. In recent years, the Yu family's business power has continued to expand, and they are also very accomplished in martial arts. I heard that Miss Yu has very high martial arts skills and has defeated many masters. However, if you show your sharpness, you will inevitably encounter many sieges. The Yu family has faced many challenges in recent years, but more and more people are challenging the Yu family. If U11 comes here and chooses Si Chenjai, he will naturally. I don't think that they are in love with each other. Si Chenjai is only interested in the power and financial resources of the Yu family, but Yuzuruo, is it because of the Si family? But Si Chenjai's weight in the Si family is negligible. If she wanted to get married because of the Si family's financial resources and influence, she should have approached herself. Could it be that she saw through that she would not fall for her, so she consciously turned to her boss directly to take over the business? Si Yao hasn't quite figured it out yet, but yesterday she asked Yin and Yang to visit Si Yao's house at night, and today she personally visited the house and offered to move in. It was not just for getting married. "Why are you still here?" Si Chenjai frowned as he followed her gaze upwards, feeling panicked for a moment. In fact, he deliberately didn't want Yuzuruo to meet Si Yao, because he was afraid that she would change her target, and then he would have no chance of winning. When he received Yuzuruo's probing gaze, he smiled quickly and explained nonchalantly, "I forgot to introduce you, this is my nephew Si Yao. Si Yao, I haven't come to meet your future aunt yet." Si Yao walked down the stairs unhurriedly, stood in front of them, took a deep look, and then stretched out a hand. "Miss Yu. What's your name, Miss Yu? I told you, you have to call me aunt. Miss Yu and I will get married soon. Oh, by the way." He seemed to remember, and said to 11 Ruo, "I am a grown-up. My nephew is also getting married. Speaking of which, he is one step ahead of me and has already received the certificate, but the banquet seems to be held at the same time as us." "Really?" Yuzuruo raised the corners of his lips, smiled, looked at Si Yao's outstretched hand, and slowly stretched out his own hand to shake his hand. Si Chenjai said this deliberately, wanting to remind Yuzuruo, consciously or unconsciously, that Si Yao was already married, so he would not turn to thinking about him. "And when I saw their hands holding each other, I felt so uncomfortable." Yuzuruo's hand looked very thin and weak, but the moment she touched it, Si Yao felt that her hand was very strong, especially the fingers, which looked very slender, but the strength when she held it, like iron pliers. Fortunately, he exercised regularly and learned self-defense techniques. As a man, she was not strong enough to hurt him. But it's also possible that she was just testing and didn't fully exert her strength. Seeing that the two of them had held hands for so long, Sichinjai couldn't tell that this was a test. He just felt that the two of them had locked eyes. He suddenly felt very unhappy and tried to push their hands apart. Hey, Ayo, don't you have something to do at the company? Go back quickly, don't delay the business. As she put her arm around his shoulder and walked out into the yard, she couldn't help but warn him, Miss Yu is about to marry me. I advise you not to have any thoughts that you shouldn't have. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 494. Chapter 494 Change of Mind. Si Yao. I know 11 Ruo is very good and has good conditions, but she is mine, so don't even think about it. Sichinjai always felt uneasy, fearing that Si Yao would have his thoughts on 11 Ruo, then he really not sure if I can beat it. However, after listening to his words, Si Yao felt ridiculous, raised his hand and patted his shoulder. Uncle, you think too much. She is not my type. Si Yao smiled and said lightly, I understand my uncle's thoughts, but I just hope you can keep your eyes open and don't attract wolves into the house. After saying that, he let go of his hand, walked straight to his car, and drove away. Sichinjai was stunned for a long time before he thought about what he said. What are you trying to do to lure a wolf into the house? Are you trying to scare me? He means, Yuziruo is a wolf. Just kidding, have you ever seen such a beautiful wolf? Besides, Yuziruo is better than him in every aspect now. Although he is from the Si family, he does not hold the real power of the Si family. Yuziruo also knows this. He does not think that she is if he has any intentions, he should only have them for her. Is there anything else he is afraid of being snatched away by her? Si Yao must be jealous of him, definitely. After he saw Yuziruo, he must have regretted it. Thinking of the woman beside him, besides being beautiful and knowing how to tinker with perfume, what other skills did she have? Not even a single member of the Chu family was left behind, and besides, she was a married woman. The actual power of the Chu family is in the hands of Chu Chen, nothing like 11 Ruo. 11 Ruok actually controls the entire Yu family and is the heir to the Gwo family. In comparison, that woman is really nothing. Thinking this way, Sichinjai felt much better. He felt even more that Si Yao was jealous of him, so he deliberately frightened him and wanted him to retreat. What a vicious little idea. He turned around and planned to clean up the room as soon as possible and let 11 Ruo move in as soon as possible. It would be better to cook the rice as soon as possible. In this case, he would not be afraid that she would change her mind. You should get her first so that you can feel at ease. Having made up his mind, Sichinjai quickly entered the house. After leaving Si's house, Yuziruo took a long breath and felt very bored. This Si family is really boring. I didn't expect that the largest family in the world would be reduced to what it is now. Looking at this family, no one is impressive, except for that man. When I looked at the information, I felt that this man's eyes were unfathomable. Just looking at the photo, I had a subconscious feeling of wanting to avoid it, so as not to be seen through by him. When I actually met face to face, the feeling was 100 times stronger than the photo. He was not like that good-for-nothing Sichinjai who tried it out on his own. He was very strong. When he faced her, he was not overwhelmed by her beauty. Unlike all the other men he had ever seen, he was indeed its very special. I originally wanted to marry the Si family, but I tried many times, but couldn't get the secret book I wanted. I also tried to use yin and yang to kill each other, but there was no result. It seemed that I was going to get what I wanted. We can only find out if we live in Si's house. Facing that trash Sichinjai, she didn't want to touch him. She felt sick when he came near her, and it was impossible for her to be a real couple with him. Once she got the secret book, she could rely on Si Jinjai's relationship after getting married. He can eat up the huge Si family industry from the inside, and when he achieves his goal, he will kick that waste away. But now she actually wants to change her mind. If the marriage partner is changed to that man, she may not need to bother so much. She can easily get the secret book she wants and the Si family's property. It's just that he seems to be married. The car quickly drove back to her villa. The villa was deserted, in sharp contrast to the noisy Si family. If it weren't for the secret book, she would never have moved to that place. She has been studying martial arts since she was a child, but the previous generation was not good at it. Her parents seemed to have lost interest in this aspect. They bluntly said that if it weren't for her, the Yu family would have almost been expelled from the ancient martial arts family. She has learned all the martial arts secrets in her family and thinks she is already very sophisticated in martial arts. However, after going out to challenge various ancient martial arts families, she discovered that there is still a gap in her own strength. When faced with ordinary people of the same age, she can easily cope with it, but some elders can barely cope with it. As she faces challenges, more and more challenges come to the Yu family. On the surface, the Yu family has the same reputation. Although her reputation has risen, she also knows in her heart that the Yu family is now surrounded by crises. She can handle it 8 times out of 10, but not every time. And she accidentally heard that there was an ancient martial arts secret book that originally belonged to the Chu family. The martial arts in it were so exquisite that if you learned it, you would be invincible. However, this book later accidentally fell into the hands of the Si family, and then the news was lost. As for the Si family, firstly, there are not many people who know about this matter. Secondly, with the power and security measures of the Si family, it is really not something that ordinary people can get their hands on. Before letting Yin Yang double kill come to test yesterday, she had actually tried it many times with others. If it wasn't for the fact that there was no other way, she wouldn't have thought of using marriage. After all, this is the only way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone by successfully entering the Si family, finding the secret book and getting the Asia Pacific at the same time. When she got home and changed her shoes, she casually pulled off the scarf around her neck, but at this moment she touched her ear and felt a sting. This kind of pain is nothing to her who has been practicing martial arts for many years, but it is not as painful as a fracture or injury. It is as if she has been pricked by a needle. It happens to be in the fragile part of the earlobe, and the stinging feeling is smooth, spreading through the nerve endings, inexplicable irritability. Subconsciously I touched my earlobe, and when I touched the small thing, I wanted to pull it off but stopped, which made me even more upset. Call me Ziahe, she frowned, rubbing her temples with one hand and sitting on the sofa. The servant went in response, and soon, Yuzai was led out tremblingly. Since she came back yesterday, she knew she was in trouble and didn't dare to say a word. She stayed in the room all day long and didn't even eat much because of fear. She looked very pale and even weaker. Seeing her frail and cowering look, Yuzairuo became even more upset. Why don't you eat? You will only become thinner if you don't eat. If you lose weight, you won't look like me anymore, and people will see it. Are you deliberately going against me? She snapped. No, no, Yuzai waved his hands quickly and said nervously, I don't dare, I will eat it right away. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 495. Chapter 495 She is a substitute. That's enough, Yuzai slammed the table hard, and was startled, and his body shook uncontrollably. Look at what you are like now, how do you look like me? Stop shrinking your neck, and you still have feet, he said, wanting to kick him up. Are you afraid of me? Are you really afraid of me? Scared, she whispered, very nervous. Afraid, Yuzuru sneered, are you afraid of me? No. You're not afraid of me. If you were really afraid of me, you wouldn't dare to secretly get your ears pierced behind my back. Just because of her little thought, she had to have her ears pierced exactly the same. God knows that she has never made any changes to her body since she has grown up. She especially hates things like ear piercings and tattoos. Martial arts training is already very painful, so why do she have to do those things for no reason? Besides, ear piercings and other things basically create opportunities for the enemy to harm you. If you take action and the other party takes the opportunity to tear off your accessories, it will be a trauma. She will not leave such an opportunity to the enemy. But now that he had to do this because of her, he looked at this sister even more hatefully. The Yu family already has an excellent daughter like her, so what else can they do with such a loser? She has a face exactly like hers and can be used for a purpose. Yes, I'm sorry. Yuzai apologized tremblingly. What's the use of saying I'm sorry? Do you know that because of your disobedience, I have to do such stupid things like you? Yuzuru became more and more angry as he spoke. He grabbed the rattan aside and said, bang, hit her. Yuzai groaned in pain, but stood still without hiding. Years of experience have taught her that hiding is more serious than not hiding, so if her sister wants to vent her anger and hit her, she just stands there and lets her hit her. After the beating, she will be relieved and she will be fine. If she is not allowed to calm down, the consequences will only become more serious. Moreover, Yuzuru was very measured when he hit her. He never hit her face or legs. These exposed and easy to see places were basically her back and buttocks. The thin canes, coupled with her skills, could be used to hit her. It was really painful to go up. Sometimes when she looks in the mirror, she can see deep and shallow marks on her back. If you want to tell the difference between the two sisters, looking at the back is probably the most intuitive way. Of course, this cannot be seen by outsiders, so if U11 wants to hit her, the way to vent his emotions is to hit her here. Yuzai is also used to it, and she will even feel very happy after receiving this beating. Because after this spanking, my sister's anger has dissipated, and the matter is over. If she doesn't take action, she is just holding her breath. She might burst out one day. If she waits for it to burst out at that time, she will burst out. Big deal. They silently carried each other. 11 Ruo's anger subsided, and the movements of his hands stopped. He gave her an annoyed look. Okay. Do you remember the lesson this time? Remember, Yuzai's body was shaking uncontrollably. It still hurt after all. He clenched his fingers tightly and did not dare to bite his lips. If he bit through, he would be beaten again. I hope you really remember it and don't do it again next time. Throwing away the cane, Yuzuru walked up to her, looked at her, sighed and patted her shoulder. It's not that my sister wants to hit you, you want to know that we are doing something big for the Yu family and the whole family. If people outside discover your existence, then I will be in danger. If I am in danger, the whole family will be in danger, mom, dad, and you, and everyone in the family. How can you survive without my protection? I know, Yuzai lowered his head and said softly, I'm sorry, sister, I won't do it next time. Her attitude made Yuzuru very satisfied and he nodded, that's right. Remember, your body is not only your body, but also mine. No matter what you want to do to your body, you should tell me first. I must protect your body, understand? Clear. Smiling slightly, Yuzuru was satisfied. Go ahead and let someone give you some medicine. Remember to eat more in the past 2 days. I see you have lost even a few ounces of meat. She groaned like a mosquito, and she turned and walked towards her basement. She was safe only if she hid in that small room. That's right. As if she remembered something again, Yuzuru stopped her. Starting tonight, I will move to C's house. You live here by yourself. Don't run around, let alone let people outside see you. Do you hear me? Rather than nodding obediently, Yuzai suddenly raised his head and looked at her. Sister, are you going to stay at C's house? What? Yuzairuo raised his eyebrows and looked at her with confusion. Do you have any objections? No, no, she shook her head quickly, but couldn't help but question. No, didn't you ask me to go for you? Don't you hate that man from the Chang-si family? I hate him, but I'm not going to sleep with him. I went to C's house to have serious things to do. Yuzairuo poked her with his finger. Why, you still have to go to sleep with him for me? Can't sleep. No, no, she shook her head in panic, her face turned red. Although he said no, his eyes were evasive and he didn't dare to look at her at all. Seeing her look, U11 thought thoughtfully, you couldn't be more likely to have really fallen in love with that loser, right? No, 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 I didn't, Yuzai quickly defended. Sister, you said he was a waste, how could I fall in love with him? I know my sister has a heavy responsibility, and I can help her too. I'm very happy that I'm finally of some use. Whatever my sister says, I won't do it. I don't dare. Regardless of whether she was sincere or not, her words made Yuzairuo feel very comfortable, and there was finally a smile on her lips. It's the best if you think so. I don't care if you really think so, or just to perfunctory but you better remember what you said, and that trash. If there is really a need, I will let you go. She thought for a while and said. Of course, she wouldn't let herself go to that point. She wouldn't sacrifice herself to such a waste to the point of betraying her appearance. But with Yuzai's existence, it was indeed much better. At least he could be at the critical moment. Take the time to help yourself. Well, I'll go back first. Yuzai pursed his lips and said. She did not dare to say anything more for fear of making too many mistakes. This time, Yuzairuo did not stop her, but just waved her hand to indicate that she could leave. Retreating to the dark basement, Yuzai looked in the mirror and slowly took off his outer clothes, revealing the mottled marks inside. Deep and shallow intertwined, she was used to it. She is just a substitute. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 496. Chapter 496 Visitors. Yao is not idle either. He now wants to find out why Yuzairuo came and what the secret hidden by the Si family is, what his grandfather said before he died. Another point is that the yin and yang double kill has arrived here. They are obviously employed by the Yu family. As for what they are going to do, it is not yet certain. Whether it will threaten or harm Suyun, he is not sure either, but no matter what, all threats must be nipped in the bud. Suyun didn't know anything about what he had done, and she had a lot of free time these days. In addition to playing with flowers and plants every day, she just quietly raised her baby. She hadn't been to the studio for a long time, let alone her babies. Arian had sent her 2 new formulas, which she had tinkered with herself. She had seen it, and it looked like that. On this day, a visitor came who had not been here for a long time. Lisa took advantage of her work break to come over to see her, and even brought a rare visitor with her. Eris, Suyun was surprised. She didn't expect that the little guy would come with Lisa. Long time no see. The little boy was very shy and smiled shyly. Su, hello. We haven't seen each other since we said goodbye last time in France. The little guy occasionally called her twice, keeping in touch and thanking her. She actually felt that he was too polite. Lin Shanjun would also remember to send her some gifts from time to time. It was obvious that the gifts were carefully selected, not too expensive, but appropriate. When did you come here and didn't you give me a call? Soo-yoon was very happy and said as she welcomed them in. Isn't there no surprise on the phone? Lisa said with a smile. After they entered the door, several more people came in behind them, each carrying a lot of things in their hands, and they put them on the ground as they entered the room. What is this for? She was shocked. A gift, a wedding gift. I heard that you are getting married. How could you not prepare a gift? But you can tell the difference. This part is mine and that part is Mr. Lin's. She pointed with her finger, as if she was afraid of making a mistake. You don't have to be so polite, Fuzu sighed. It was scary to see so many things filling up the whole room very quickly. You're welcome, what the hell? By the way, as if she just remembered, she took out a very delicate bottle from her bag. Here's this for you. Soo-yoon took it over doubtfully. This is. My father gave this to you. He asked me to bring it here. It is also a wedding gift for you. He said this is not an expensive thing, but maybe you will need it. You know, I don't know much about the things you are studying. Shrugging, Lisa handed her the bottle in her hand. A very delicate small bottle. Before Soo-yoon opened it, she could already smell a faint fragrance. If she was not mistaken, it should be essential oil. It is Mr. Will's most proud masterpiece in his life. The production is very small, so it is a collection. It is really a great honor to give it to her. This is not expensive, it is simply too expensive. Thank you Mr. Will for me, she was very moved. Although I have only met Mr. Will a few times, although he is a bit old-fashioned, he is still very knowledgeable in perfume. Lisa flattened her mouth. He just gave you such a small thing, and you are so happy. I gave so many. Not as good as this little bottle of his. Before going out, when her father gave it to her, she was a little disapproving. It was such a small bottle. She was really stingy. How could she have the nerve to give it as a gift? But her father insisted on letting her take it, saying that Soo-yoon would definitely know it. Like. Now it seems that he was indeed right. How could it be? I like the ones you gave me as well. I like them all. Soo-yoon knew she was joking and said with a smile, come, sit inside. What do you want to drink? Coffee? Juice? She decided for them, and asked the little guy the next question, by the way, you have allergies. If you have any allergies, be sure to tell me and I will tell them to avoid it. Thank you, the little guy said politely. Why did you bring Iris here? Soo-yoon was surprised. She didn't expect that she would bring this little guy with her this time. I can't help it. His father said he had something to do, so he asked me to take him with him temporarily and be a nanny for a day. She sighed. Who made them have such a good relationship? Since the last incident in France, she felt sorry for the little guy. I would contact him when the time came, but he was quite diligent. Lin Shanjun would occasionally ask her to help look after Iris. Of course, he also used his connections and resources to give her something in return. He is a businessman and he values fair transactions. He will not suffer a loss, but he will not let her suffer either. Soo-yoon nodded. You mean, Mr. Lin has also come to the country? Lisa nodded her chin and took a sip of coffee. Calculating the time, I should be able to catch up with your wedding. By the way, you said you were pregnant before, but I looked at you and saw no change. It's only been a few months, so it's normal for there to be no changes. Putting a hand on his lower abdomen, he felt that new life was really magical. On the surface, her body shape has not changed much, but she can already feel that her body is undergoing subtle changes. This change is not visible from the outside, but she can feel it herself. Sometimes she feels lethargic, and sometimes she feels a little sad. She has never been so easily sad before. Another thing is, she always feels energetic in her body. Although she sleeps more often, as long as she is awake, Her energy and stamina are extremely good, as if the child brings her strength. Sometimes she can move some heavy objects very easily. Of course, Sci-Yao is determined not to allow her to do these things. Once he sees it, he will be very nervous and ask her to put it down immediately. Even if he moves a stool, he must be careful. Careful. Fortunately, Sci-Yao has been busy recently. If he stayed with her body all day long, she would probably be confused by his nervous attitude. "Su, do you have a baby?" the child blinked and asked curiously. "Yes, in a few months, the baby will be born." "Do you prefer a younger brother or a younger sister?" she asked with a smile. "I like them all," he smiled politely, staring at Su-Yun's belly with straight eyes. "Do you want to touch it?" Lisa looked at his appearance and asked guessingly. "Su-Yun. Is it okay?" he said happily immediately. "It's possible, but it's still very small now, so I can't really figure it out." End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 497. Chapter 497 Check-in. That's fun too. Lisa also became interested and ready to take action. The hands of two people, one big and one small, were about to reach towards her belly. Su-Yun couldn't laugh or cry. She couldn't hide or dodge. At this moment, her cell phone rang suddenly, which gave her an excuse. "I'll answer the call." Lisa and the little guy lost their hands and were extremely regretful. The call was from Sci-Yao. He was just concerned about what she was doing, told her to take care of her health, not to be tired, etc. Then he asked her, "Are there any guests at home?" Since she became pregnant, Sci-Yao has added another layer to the already strong security measures at home, and has strict control over the guests who can enter and exit, so it is not surprising that he knows. "Well, Lisa is here, and she brought a lot of gifts." She glanced in their direction and saw Lisa eating fruit leisurely, but the little guy looked a little restrained and sat there motionless. He is really a very well-behaved child. Fortunately, he received first aid in time in France, but it was a pity that his mother. "You have another child?" "Well, I met him last time in France, and you should have met him, Mr. Lin's son." "Yes, Lin Shanjun has also come to the country," he said thoughtfully. "I will come back early to have dinner with you in the evening." She originally wanted to say no, "You can go about your business first," but the phone on his end has been hung up. He has been in such a hurry lately, and she doesn't know what it is. She had a vague feeling that Sci-Yao was hiding something from her, but she didn't know what it was. If he didn't tell her, she wouldn't ask, but she knew that his starting point must be for her own good. Yuziruo simply packed up and moved directly to the Si family's old house. The room has been tidied up for her. The bedroom is large and the things are complete. It can be seen that she takes great care of her. Si Chinjai smiles flatteringly at the side. 11 Ruo, what do you think? If there is anything you are not satisfied with, just tell me. I'll ask them to change it immediately. No, that's it. She wasn't very picky about living there, not to mention, she wasn't here to stay for a long time. Putting down the bag in her hand, she sat down by the bed and pressed the bed with her hand. It was okay. The bed was neither soft nor hard, just right. She didn't like to sleep on a bed that was too soft, as it was not friendly to her lumbar spine. Except for the bed, everything else doesn't matter. As long as you like it. I'm afraid you won't like it. Si Chinjai sat down next to her and said with a smile, 11 Ruo, I really didn't expect that you would be willing to move to my house so soon. I'm so happy. Don't worry, I will make the wedding beautiful and I will never wrong you. As he spoke, he moved closer to her. Yuziruo moved a long way to the side and looked at him warily. What are you going to do? Startled by her actions, Si Chinjai blinked. I just want to get closer to you. Don't you like it? Si Chinjai, I'm warning you. I said I moved here just to get used to it, but if you want to do anything else, don't blame me for being rude to you. Yuzuru spoke harshly with a cold face. Overwhelmed by her aura, Sichinjai was stunned for a moment, but then he remembered how she had been so snuggling in front of him before, and said disapprovingly, okay, okay, I know you don't mean anything else, you're not just a girl. But now, aren't we just getting used to each other in advance? You see, we will get married soon. After the wedding, we will be husband and wife, and then we will do what we need to do. As he spoke, he stood up and moved towards her, opening his arms to hug her. But before his hand even touched her, she put her foot against her chest to put some distance between her. Yuzuru crossed his arms over his chest and stared at him coldly. Sichinjai, I'm warning you for the last time, if you come close again or do anything unethical, I'll kick you out. 11 Ruo, look what you're doing, we weren't all good before, you didn't really like me kissing you. Shut up. Bend your knees, straighten them, and kick hard. Sichinjai was kicked directly over and hit the table behind him before he stopped. His back was so painful that he grinned. He didn't know how this woman could fall out so easily. She was fine before, Wenxiang. Nef right, but now he is like a stranger. I told you to shut up. Get out of my room now. You are not allowed to come in until I tell you. Standing there, Yuzuru gave an order in a cold voice. He. Sichinjai straightened up and couldn't help but curse after being hit. However, when he saw her face that seemed to be shrouded in thousands of years of ice, he swallowed the curse that was on his lips. Go down. He can't afford to offend Yuzuru now. He hasn't married her yet, and the Yu family's property has not come into his hands. Now he can only endure and coax this capricious young lady. With this thought in mind, he patted the folds on his body, got up from the ground, and put on that smile again. Okay, I'll just go out. Don't be angry, anger is not good for your health. You can live here in peace and don't let anyone touch you. I won't touch you, you can eat whatever you want, just ask, okay? Don't be too outspoken, just treat this place as your own home. Looking at his flattering look, Yuzuru only felt disgusted. With a sullen face, she watched him exit his room and said, wait. Sichinjai was very happy when he heard her shouting wait a minute and spat in his heart. Why are you pretending? It's really just a trick of playing hard to get. He hurriedly stuck his head out and said, what's wrong? Without my order, no one, including you, is allowed to enter this room again, she said coldly. Okay, I understand. Sichinjai closed the door for her angrily, and Sichinjai cursed secretly. Yuzuru was alone in the room and looked around briefly. There were no cameras or monitors. This was beyond her expectation. She was used to guarding people and dismantling various dangerous devices. She was also surprised that this place didn't have any of these for her. But how did she know that except for Si Yao, everyone else in the Si family had spent all their time fighting among themselves, and on the contrary, they were not so defensive against outsiders. They were focused on the benefits they would get from marrying the Yu family, but they did not think that 11 Ruo had other intentions, so naturally they would not set up defenses or install any surveillance equipment on her. However, this also saved her a lot of trouble, and she could live in peace for the time being. Standing on the balcony and looking downstairs, the Si family's house is not small. It is not easy to find every room, not to mention the secret passages, basements, secret compartments, etc. that may be hidden. She cannot be so careless. If you want to continue to find the purpose, you should think of a way. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 498. Chapter 498 Hot and Cold. MRSSI was eating snacks downstairs. When she saw her son coming down dejected, she guessed that he was deflated again. He glanced upstairs and said softly, "Is 11 Ruo staying here?" Don't live with you. Huh. Raising his head suddenly, Si Chinjai frowned and looked at the old lady. "Mom, you're laughing at me too. You silly kid, why is mom laughing at you?" "I'm just trying to help you find a way." She slowly took a bite of the peach cake and said calmly, "Before, you said that Miss Yu was taken advantage of by you. Come on, I really thought you were so capable. Tell me, you often go to romantic places, and you were always surrounded by women. Why can't you even do what you are best at? You are like this. Even if you really get the power of the Si family one day, can you really do well?" The old lady sighed, feeling quite helpless at her son's failure. From the bottom of her heart, the one she loved the most was her little son. She was already in her 40s and almost 50 when she was pregnant, so she hesitated and gave birth to him. The eldest son was raised outside by his father in his early years. He could not see or get close to him all year round. The middle son and daughter were either playboys and incompetent or rebellious and disobedient. Having such a younger son satisfied her maternal love. She put all her love and energy into her youngest son. She originally wanted to inherit the Si family's property when he came of age, but her husband was partial and insisted on passing it on to Si Yao even though the eldest son was no longer around. There was no son who could not be given to a grandson. She and her husband had a lot of trouble, but they did not dare to make it too much. The husband still had the final say in this family. When he died, he called Si Yao to explain. He reminded her that if she didn't still have that secret book in her hand, she would have felt that she had spent these decades with this man in vain. "Mom, you don't even believe me now, do you? If it weren't for my father's partiality, how could I be in this situation now, and I still need a marriage and a woman to support me." Si Chinjai was very frustrated. He sat down next to her and couldn't help complaining. As soon as he complained, the old lady's heart softened, and she always felt that she could not bear him. "Okay, your father is partial, but that doesn't mean he left you nothing. Have you put away the things he gave you before, and have you learned from them? What are you studying? It's not like you don't know. There is nothing in it except some strange characters that I can't understand. I thought they left me a treasure. Even a map is better than that crap." At that time, his mother gave it to him mysteriously, and he thought it was something good. Unfortunately, in the past few years since he got it, he had turned it over several times in the first 2 years. He couldn't understand it even after turning it over and over. He even imitated other people's methods of soaking it in water and roasting it. There is nothing special about the method. In the end, he came to the conclusion that the old man must have deceived him, so he threw the book away. He didn't know where he had thrown it, or what he had read. "Your father treated this thing like a treasure when he was alive. If I hadn't taken it away secretly while he was confused, I wouldn't be able to touch it. You can't understand it? Maybe you haven't thought of the secret inside. There must be something in it. Hiding something big. It's a huge treasure again, isn't it? I'm tired of hearing about it, and my ears are getting calluses. Mom, there is a huge treasure in front of me now. It's true that I guarded it." He caught it. He cracked a handful of melon seeds and turned his face to look up. "Mom, you are also a woman. What does it mean when a woman is hot and cold, far and near to you?" he thought thoughtfully. "After getting along with each other for the past few days, I always feel that Miss Yu has such a weird temper. Sometimes she is as cold as ice to him, sometimes as gentle as water, sometimes like a ferocious tiger, and sometimes like a cute little sheep." He felt that if he continued like this, he would be schizophrenic by her. Of course I knew who he was talking about. She smiled and said, "Isn't that what women are all about? Did you just know that today?" But she was too emotional. It was like, two people. That may be because she is not an ordinary person. It is said that Miss Yu is moody, and I have seen it. Mom, to be honest with you, if it weren't for the fact that the Yu family's family background is indeed good, and if it weren't for the special circumstances of our family, as long as you sit in a Yao's seat, Mom will not agree to this marriage. I really can't bear the thought of such a woman coming in to be my daughter-in-law. She shook her head, clapped her hands gently to shake off some crumbs, and then picked up the teacup and took a sip. After a pause, he added, but don't be too panicked. She is willing to marry you and has moved in, which means she still has you in her heart. She may be acting like a young lady even though she is hot and cold. Wait for you. After a pause, she thought for a moment and said, have you not, that yet? Sichanjai didn't react for a moment and was stunned for a moment. Which one? Tisk. After clicking her lips, Mrssi raised her hand and hit him on the head. Why are you so confused now? That's the one. Oh. He suddenly realized, with a grimace, no. She is so fierce and cold, and I can't help it if she doesn't want to. She just warned me not to get too close to her. I doubt that even if she is married, she will know, I'm not allowed to touch her. You stupid boy, she slapped his leg hard, and the old lady shook her head. She didn't allow it, so you really stopped touching her? Don't you know that women always mean what they say? You've been trying to pick up girls all these years. Where has all the experience gone? No wonder she is sometimes cold to you and sometimes hot to you. When she really becomes yours, she will stick to you with all her heart. You. Really, Sichanjai was a little doubtful. Thinking about her cold attitude, I can't help but shudder just thinking about it. Ha, the old lady smiled, got up and left. He stayed there alone, thinking about his mother's words, and thinking about his experience in picking up girls in the past few years, but he felt that all the tricks seemed to have failed on the woman in front of him. Maybe it's because she's learning martial arts, but she's too strong, and I feel like I can't handle it, so I can't help but be afraid of her. At the same time, in the room upstairs, Yuzuru also thought of a way. She opened the door and looked around. There's someone coming. The servant received the order and immediately ran over. Miss Yu, what are your orders? Let your young master. After a pause, she looked at the sky outside and it was still bright, then thought about it and said, forget it, it's okay. Even if you want to make a cliché, you have to choose the right time. Now is obviously not the right time. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 499. Chapter 499 Reunion. Turning around and going back to the room, he picked up his cell phone and sent a message to Sichanjai, come to my room at 9 o'clock tonight. I have something to tell you. Sichanjai was drinking alone out of boredom. When he received the news, he thought he had read it wrong. I rubbed my eyes to make sure I saw it correctly. I almost jumped up with excitement. Knew it? Women are indeed duplicitous animals. Just now, you said you shouldn't approach her or enter her room. How could you hold back so quickly? It's 9 o'clock tonight, why not now? If there is something you can't say now, you can't say it downstairs. You have to go to her room. It was still at night, so this was clearly a hint and invitation. If he couldn't understand this, then it would be all in vain. Getting excited, Sichanjai almost went straight upstairs, but in the end he still had some sense. Since she had already taken the initiative, he was not in a hurry at this moment. As the daughter of a wealthy family, it was understandable that he would be a little reserved and coy. He simply waited until 9 o'clock to see what she was doing. What a trick! With this thought, he was no longer in a hurry. He poured himself a glass of wine and took a long sip. He seemed to have seen wealth and beauty rushing towards his arms. Si Yao, Si Yao, just wait for me to pull you down from your position as the leader of the Si family. The night is dark. There are not many people in this Western restaurant, and it is not far from Si Yao's villa. It was Si Yao's intention to choose this place to invite people to dinner. Lisa arrived with her children and Suyun together, but the two men arrived late. After calling Si Yao, Suyun said, "Don't wait for them for now. Let's order food first and wait while we eat." Okay, Lisa nodded in agreement. Tell me, these men don't know why they are so busy and don't have time to take care of their children. What about Iris? Normally you help take care of her, you and Mr. Lin. Suyun paused and looked at her meaningfully. Lisa almost choked and shook her head quickly. No, 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 how could I be with him? I still have my own job, it's just a temporary help. He usually has a nanny. Nanny. Suyun looked at the child with emotion. She has also seen the extreme behavior of the child's biological mother. If the child follows her, it is indeed not a good result. But Lin Shanjun is too busy to care about the child. The two of them decided to give birth to a little life, isn't it? Should we be prepared to take care of him, raise him, and take on the responsibilities of being a parent? I have grown up and can take care of myself in 2 years, I can still help my father's business. Very suddenly, Iris spoke. Maybe the more children are in such an environment, the easier it is for children to mature prematurely. Although he doesn't talk much, he understands everything. Suyun smiled softly, you are great. He is great. If Mr. Lin hadn't insisted, he would have gone into business with his father instead of following me. He's very capable, Lisa snorted, but she also felt pity for the child. I'm sorry, I'm late. Si Yao's voice came from behind. He quickly came over, bent down, held Suyun's shoulders with both hands, and kissed her gently on the side of the cheek. Oh, dog food, Lisa covered her eyes with the back of her hands, showing off her expression. It seems that today's meal will make you full without eating, Lin Shanjun said with a smile. He and Si Yao came at the same time. It seemed that they came together. He looked at his son first and asked, are you doing well? Okay, he nodded solemnly, and the little guy's words were very deep. Lin Shanjun smiled with satisfaction, sat down next to his son, and then looked at Suyun. Miss Su, long time no see. Yes, it's been a long time since we last met. I haven't seen Iris for a long time either. I'm really glad that you can come, Suyun said with a smile. Did you come together? Yes, I'm here just to discuss cooperation. I have something to ask Mr. Si. Before he finished speaking, Si Yao coughed lightly and put one hand on the back of her chair. Mr. Lin is here to discuss cooperation. We had a case to discuss, and we just finished it at the company, so we decided to come here together so that you don't have to travel too far. Haha, yes, we're talking about some business, Lin Shanjun said lightly with a smile. Mr. Lin is going to cooperate with Huanya. Is it still related to spices? The last cooperation with Marseille soap was very pleasant. At the beginning, she accidentally improved Marseille soap, and the sales have been very good. Later, she continued to develop new perfume, essential oils, etc., and stopped paying attention to it. Marseille soap. Lin Shanjun hesitated for a moment, glanced at Si Yao, and then smiled. It's not just that, our company actually has other businesses, and Huanya is also constantly expanding and innovating. Why, Su, are you also interested in discussing this, Miss? Suyun shook her head. I'm not good at business. I can only make small things like spices and perfumes. This is no small thing. Miss Su is being humble. Your name is now very famous abroad. Now many young people like your brand of perfume. Lisa and her team are not also because they use the perfume you make amazing everyone. His compliment made Suyun a little embarrassed. No, Lisa and the others are outstanding in their own right. You don't have to be so modest. If Mr. Si hadn't told you that you were pregnant and wouldn't let you do it anymore, I would have really wanted to place a batch of orders. Si Yao said dissatisfiedly, I promised not to mention this matter. Really? You can also place an order in advance. After I give birth to the child, I will be the first to make Mr. Lin's order. Su Yun's eyes lit up, and she felt that it was not impossible. Ha ha ha, I don't mind, but does Miss Su want to work so hard? It's not like she has to earn money for milk powder, right? He gave Si Yao a narrow look. Of course my wife doesn't need to worry about the money for milk powder, Si Yao said, you don't have to work so hard. Did I say you can do it after you give birth? Don't you even need your body? I didn't say I'd do it immediately after I'm done. Sign the order first, and I'll take it into my own hands after the business is gone. Su Yun said half-jokingly, which made Lin Shanjun laugh. You also said you don't know how to do business. Isn't that quite good? Su, you don't have to worry about orders. As long as you ask, I guarantee that you will receive orders. There are many people in our circle who want to order your perfume. You should think about how to expand the scale and do more. Some come out. The few people had a great time chatting with each other, and it was a joy to reunite old friends. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 500. Chapter 500, Rhetoric. Looking at the time on his watch, it was exactly 9 o'clock. Si Chenjai raised his hand and knocked on the door. He tugged on the collar buttons uncomfortably. He had dressed up carefully for tonight's date, but when he was about to tie his tie, Si Kanan glanced at him and said, It's so late, you want to go out to eat Western food? Dress up so grandly. The speaker has no intention of speaking, but the listener has the intention. Her casual words awakened him. That's right, he's not going out to attend any grand event. Even if it's a date, it's on his own property, in his own house. At the beginning of the night, a man and a woman were alone. Since Yuziruo would ask him out, he would definitely think about what would happen under such conditions and such an environment. But he still sent an invitation to him. Was it a subtext? It was what he meant. Thinking of this, he pulled off the tie he had just tied around his neck, threw away the suit he had carefully chosen, rolled up the cuffs of his shirt, looked in the mirror, and unbuttoned the 2 buttons on the collar. Pulling the neckline to both sides to expose the skin underneath, I think it's quite sexy. Standing in front of the mirror, he looked around, tilted his head and pulled his hair twice. He felt quite satisfied, and smiled evilly. Tonight, if nothing unexpected happened, he would be able to take down this rich lady. And then, get married in peace and contentment, take over the Yu family's property, and then, take away all the Si family's wealth and kick out that brat Si Yao. It's such a wonderful future. He couldn't wait any longer. He walked out of the room, chose a bottle of good red wine, then took 2 glasses and a snack, put them all on a tray, and asked the servant to help deliver them to the door of Yuziruo's room upstairs before he took over. Then he waved his hand and signaled the servant to leave. Just as the servant was about to leave, he thought for a while, stopped the person and whispered, No one is allowed to come here without my order, let alone disturb my chat with the young mistress, do you understand? The servant left in response, and he felt relieved. He cleared his throat in a low voice and tugged on his collar again. He was still a little uneasy in his heart. In the room, Yuziruo's years of martial arts training made her hearing much more sensitive. She had already noticed the movement at the door. After hearing that it was Si Chenjai, she relaxed her vigilance slightly, but did not take the initiative to open the door. Waiting for him to deliver it to your door. When there was a knock on the door, Yuziruo took a quick look and saw that it was exactly 9 o'clock. He was quite good at timing. He curled his lips, walked over slowly and pulled on his slippers, and opened the door. Honey, I'm here, With one hand on the doorframe, Sichinjai held the tray with the other and struck a pose that he thought was cool. When the door opened, he raised his head and showed a smile that he thought was charming. However, when he could see clearly, the smile on his face froze, because after Yuzuru opened the door, he immediately turned around and walked into the room without even looking at him, not even stopping, letting him just look to a back view. Sichinjai. 11 Ruo. He chased after her and called her name. He didn't care about posing and hurriedly chased in. Look, I'm on time. You asked me to come. Do you have something to say to me, or, do you want to do something with me? Following behind her, he hurriedly closed the door, and then chased after her in small steps. Yuzuru had probably just taken a shower. She was wearing a large nightgown and tied the belt directly around her waist, showing her slender waist. Because she has been practicing martial arts for many years, her exposed calves are not slender, but have some muscles, well-proportioned lines, and fair skin. He swallowed hard when he saw them. Walking to the desk and stopping, Yuzuru picked up a large towel placed on the chair, grabbed her hair and wiped it. It was really uncomfortable to have water dripping from her hair after washing it, but she hated drying her hair, so she just used wipe it with a dry towel. Let me help you, he put down the tray in his hand and put it aside. Sichinjai stepped forward to help. But she turned to the side to avoid it, and said coldly, no need. Hands were empty, and hearing her voice so cold, Sichinjai really gave up. But then I thought about my purpose and future, so I endured it again and said with a smile, why are you so exposed to outsiders like me? We are almost married. It's too violent for you to wipe your hair like this, it will damage your hair. I wiped it for you. No need. As she spoke, she had already wiped it off, threw her hair back and shook her head. There were still some water droplets in his hair that had not been completely dried. They were scattered in all directions, and some of them fell on Sichinjai's face. He raised his head and closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. It smelled so good. Yuzuru felt that taking care of her hair was very troublesome and a waste of time, so her hair only grew to her shoulders and was not long. He grabbed 2 handfuls and then raised his eyelids to look at Sichinjai. Seeing him standing there with a miserable look on his face, he suddenly realized why he had called him here. Such a cold attitude would not be good for him later. Rhetoric. After thinking about it for a moment, he picked up the towel that was thrown aside and handed it to him. I don't like the hair dryer, please use this to dry it for me. Sichinjai was overjoyed to see the change. He quickly took the towel and frowned when he touched it. This towel is soaked. I'll change it for you. Yuzuru almost blurted out that she didn't want it, but then thought about letting him go, so she didn't say a word, and went to find a dry towel with him. He stood behind her, picked up her hair, and put it in the big towel. Wiping. Wet hair makes it easy to get sick. I know you are a busy person and have many things to do, but you can't help but take good care of your body. But in the future, when you have me, when we get married, you can leave some things to me. I'll help you share the burden. Women, don't make yourself too hard, there are some things that men should do, Sichinjai said without missing a moment while helping her wipe her hair. Yuzuru smiled coldly and silently with the corners of his lips raised. How could she not hear the meaning in his words? How could everyone not be clear about the purpose of this marriage? To be precise, her thoughts about this man were clear at a glance, but they didn't know what she really wanted. They probably thought she wanted to what they want is their SI family's property. How naive she is, how could she know that although the SI family's property is huge, in her eyes, the set of martial arts secrets is the most important. Instead of following Sichinjai's words, she closed her eyes and felt the comfortable feeling coming from her scalp. She said slowly, Sichinjai, your SI family is quite big. You are not afraid of such a big house got robbed. End of this chapter.